taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself who taught you to hate being what God gave you.
I'm sick of the lies they're giving you guys. I'm sick of the guys that diss me and hide. I'm sick of your mind, just give it the vibe. I'm sick of being sick of the rhymes and not being signed. I'm sick of the lies they're giving you guys. I'm sick of the guys that diss.
Talk about it. So this is what Manning says. I said, rather than me start dissing Manning, which I've already done a little bit, I said, let me read what he himself says, and I have the page numbers if you read the book or reading the book. The origins of this book date back to the winter of '69 when I first read the autobiography of Malcolm X. That's what he says on page 489. I first read the autobiography of Malcolm X, and I remember it very well. It was the summer of 1968. I was a student on a scholarship at Harvard University, and we were told to read this book. That was so I read it about a few months before Manning did. He says here on page 13, I have had to weigh forensic probabilities, not certainties. So he admits, and I've never read a book that has so many probablys, maybes, and perhapses in my life. You understand? He speculates throughout the book about a variety of things relative to Malcolm. He speculates about it. And that includes affairs that Betty Shabazz was supposed to be having with Malcolm's best friend. He speculates about this. Another one, page 66, he said, this is what he said, I'm not saying based on circumstantial but strong evidence, Malcolm was probably describing his own homosexual encounter with Paul Lennon. The revelations of his involvement with Lennon produced much speculation about Malcolm's sexual orientation. Now, if you've read the autobiography of Malcolm X, which all of us should have read, you know that there's a passage in there when Malcolm, and I always tell people there are three Malcolms. There was Malcolm Little, Malcolm X, and El Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. And I always ask my students, which one are you talking about? So now I'm talking about Malcolm Little, when he was pimping, dope pushing, all of that stuff. He says there was a guy, one of his friends named Rudy. This is what Malcolm says in the autobiography, that one of his friends named Rudy used to get paid to go to white men's homes in Boston to sprinkle baby powder on them while they had orgasms. I know there's some kids in here, but you explain this to them afterwards, okay? Okay, so what Manning says is that the Rudy that Malcolm talks about is really Malcolm X. You understand what I'm saying? But notice what he says, based on circumstantial but strong evidence. Where's the strong evidence? Malcolm was probably described. So this is like I write a book or Zak writes a book, and then Zak, God forbid, and I, God forbid, we join the ancestors and say, well, this is what Zak probably meant, or what Winbush probably meant. And then the third one, Malcolm was not aware until too late of the deep hostilities he had provoked inside the Nation of Islam. This is one of the most absurd statements in the book as far as I'm concerned. Malcolm was not aware until too late of the deep hostilities he had provoked inside the Nation of Islam. Does this look like a man who was not aware? I don't think so.
Malcolm was that person, who basically said, that, you can say what you want to me, you can even try to do what you want to me, but, I'm still going to be standing, when all is basically said and done, whereas other leaders were already on the knees. I think that's one of the extraordinary things about Malcolm X. I'm going to end by saying this. When I was in Harlem, when I went to Harlem for the first time, when I was doing my research on Malcolm, I came across a poster that I ended up buying at one of the bookstores. And it had a photograph of Malcolm taken in 1964 when he was in Ghana. It was a color photo. And it said he was a hero and a hope. He was not a myth, only a man. But to be a hope and a man in mid-20th century America was to be something special. And so in conclusion, you know, Malcolm was a hope. Malcolm was a man. And no matter what is said in books like this, it will not take away the fact that Malcolm was also special.